the twin suns hung low over the alien colony world of Trass. Their light spread across the desert, casting long shadows over the metal towers and dusty roads. The city was alive with trade, a place where everything could be bought or sold. Shouts of merchants echoed through the streets, offering food, weapons, rare stones, and even living beings. Mark, a soldier of Earth, walked slowly through the marketplace. His uniform was worn, the edges torn from battles on distant planets. He had come to Trass not for glory or war but for rest. Yet he could not escape the feeling that this world was heavy with cruelty. The air itself carried the smell of dust and smoke, mixed with the cries of those trapped behind cages. As he moved past the stalls, his eyes caught something that made him stop. Ahead stood a row of iron cages lined along the marketplace. Inside were slaves from different races. Some had scales that glimmered faintly under the suns. Others had soft feathers across their arms. Many looked down at the ground, broken and silent, waiting for their fate to be decided by the highest bidder. Mark had seen slavery before. The empire that ruled this region thrived on it. He had always hated it, but he had never been able to stop it. A single man could not break an empire. He kept walking, but then his gaze locked on one cage at the end of the line. Inside sat a girl unlike the others. She was thin and weak, yet her eyes shone with a strange silver light. Her skin was pale, almost glowing under the suns. She did not look down in defeat. Instead, she sat upright, her gaze steady as she watched the crowd pass. There was no begging in her eyes, no fear, only quiet strength. A merchant leaned lazily against the cage. He was a tall alien with green skin and sharp teeth. He saw Mark watching and laughed. "You like this one, soldier? Worthless. Nobody wants her. She speaks little, she fights not at all. Even for a slave, she is useless. I would sell her for a single credit." The crowd laughed at his words. Some pointed, mocking the girl for her weakness. Others shook their heads, uninterested. Mark frowned. He looked again at the girl. Her silver eyes never left his. In that gaze, he saw no weakness. He saw patience, and something deeper he could not name. The merchant waved his hand. "Come, soldier. Buy her for a coin. Feed your pity. She will not last the season anyway." Mark reached into his belt. His fingers touched the single credit coin he kept there. He had not planned to spend it. A soldier's pay was small, and credits were needed for food, repairs, travel. Yet something inside told him this moment mattered. He pulled out the coin and held it up. The merchant's eyes widened in surprise, then he laughed even louder. "1 credit, then. Take her. She is yours. The cheapest sale in this market today." The cage opened with a rusty creak. The girl stepped out slowly, her thin form steady, her silver eyes still fixed on Mark. The crowd lost interest quickly. To them, it was nothing more than a foolish soldier wasting a coin. They turned back to other stalls, leaving the strange pair alone. Mark looked at her closely now. "You are free," he said. "No one owns you anymore. Do you understand?" The girl tilted her head. Her voice was soft but clear. "I understand. You gave a coin, and I was given to you. But freedom is not given by a merchant. Freedom is chosen. And I choose to follow you." Mark blinked. "Follow me? Why? You can go wherever you want now." The girl shook her head. "My name is Lyra. My people have a law of the heart. A life saved must be repaid. You opened my cage when no one else would. You saw me when no one else did. For that, I walk with you until my debt is paid. Mark studied her for a long moment. He saw no fear in her. Her voice carried truth. He sighed, knowing he could not argue. Very well, Lyra. Stay if you wish. But understand, I did not free you for repayment. I freed you because no one deserves to live in chains. Lyra lowered her head, not in weakness, but in respect. Then I will carry your words with me. Chains broke today because of you. One day, you will see why that matters. Mark did not understand her meaning, but her silver eyes made him feel that this simple act of kindness would lead to something far greater. He looked around at the busy market, the cages still filled with suffering, and he felt the weight of the world pressing against him. Yet beside him stood one girl, free at last. They stepped out of the marketplace together, two figures lost in the crowd. The suns burned above, the empire ruled beyond, but a single credit had changed both their lives. Neither knew it yet, but the path they had taken would lead not only to freedom but to humanity's greatest victory. The suns were setting when Mark and Lyra left the market of chains. The desert air turned cooler, and long shadows stretched across the ground. Traders shouted their last calls of the day, while cages rattled as merchants locked them for the night. Mark did not look back. He had no power to free them all, but he had freed one. That was all he could do. Lyra walked quietly beside him. She had no shoes, only thin cloth around her feet. Her steps were steady despite her weakness. She carried nothing, yet her presence felt heavier than all the supplies on Mark's back. He glanced at her often, wondering why she chose to remain at his side. They reached a quiet street where the noise of the market faded. Mark stopped and faced her. "Listen, Lyra," he said firmly. "You are not my servant. You are not my property. I meant what I said. You are free to go." Her silver eyes met his without fear. "I know," she said softly. "But freedom to me is not running alone. My people believe that when a chain is broken, a new bond is made. You gave me a life when no one else cared. I cannot turn away." Mark frowned. He did not understand her world, but he felt her words were not empty. "What is it you want, then? If you follow me, you will face danger. I am a soldier. My road is not safe." Lyra placed a hand on her chest. "My road ended in that cage. You opened it. Now my steps belong to you until my debt is paid." Mark shook his head. "There is no debt. I don't want repayment. I just saw someone who deserved better." Her expression softened, and for the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. "And that is why I must stay." They continued walking until they reached the edge of the city. Small houses built from stone and metal rested against the hills. Mark found an old inn where he could rent a room. The keeper, a short man with tired eyes, looked at Lyra with suspicion but said nothing. A single coin gave them shelter for the night. Inside the small room, Mark set down his pack. Lyra stood near the window, watching the sun sink below the horizon. For a long time, neither spoke. At last, Mark asked, "Where are your people now? Do you know where they were taken?" Lyra's gaze stayed on the darkening sky. "My people are scattered across the empire. Some work in mines. Some serve in palaces. Many have died. I do not know where they are now, but I carry their memory." Her voice did not break. She spoke as if each word was carved from stone. Mark felt a sharp ache inside his chest. He had seen human soldiers captured too, but to lose an entire people to slavery was a wound beyond measure. "You said you owe me your life," Mark said quietly. "But maybe what you owe me is your truth. Who are you really, Lyra? I saw how that merchant mocked you. He thought you worthless. Yet when I look at you, I see something he could not." Lyra turned from the window. The silver in her eyes caught the last light of the sun's. "I am the daughter of a builder," she said. "My father was a mind of great skill. He worked on machines that could move worlds. When the Empire came, they wanted his knowledge. He refused, so they killed him and took me instead. They thought I was nothing." Mark felt the weight of her words. "And were they wrong?" "Yes," she said simply. "Because I carry his memory, his lessons, and his secrets. The Empire destroyed his body, but they could not take what he gave me. That is why I must walk beside you. My father said one day a hand would reach through the chains, and when it did, I must follow. He told me that hand would lead not only me, but many, to freedom." Mark stared at her. "You mean me?" Lyra nodded. "You gave a single coin, but you opened more than a cage. You opened a path." Silence filled the small room. Mark did not know what to say. He had not acted with destiny in mind. He had only followed his heart. Yet Lyra spoke with such certainty that he felt a strange fire kindle inside him. Finally, he said, "If what you say is true, then we will need to move carefully. The Empire will not ignore you if they know who you are." Lyra's voice was steady. "They already know. That is why I was hidden in that cage. They feared what I might become if I found someone like you." Mark tightened his fists. "Then they made a mistake. You're not alone anymore." For the first time since her release, Lyra's smile grew wider. "Then my debt begins tonight. Together we will walk a road the Empire cannot see. And when we reach the end, you will understand why I stayed." Outside, the night settled over Trass. The city lights glowed faintly, and the desert winds carried whispers across the sand. In the inn, a soldier and a freed slave prepared for sleep. Neither could guess what trials awaited them, but both felt that their meeting was no accident. A bond had been forged, stronger than chains, stronger than fear. The next morning, the desert world of Trass woke with the noise of trade once again. Merchants shouted, ships rose into the sky, and the market of chains filled with fresh cries. But inside a small room at the edge of the city, Mark and Lyra prepared to leave. Mark strapped on his old soldier pack. He had little food, fewer credits, and no clear destination. He was only passing through this world, but now he was no longer alone. Lyra stood beside the door, calm and silent, as if she had already chosen her path. As they stepped into the street, Mark spoke. "If you travel with me, I need to know more. I need to know what you carry inside you. Yesterday you spoke of your father and his knowledge. Tell me the truth, Lyra. What is it that makes the Empire fear you?" For a moment, Lyra did not answer. Her silver eyes scanned the crowded street, watching every corner as if danger might rise at any moment. Only when they reached a quieter road did she finally speak. "My people were not warriors," she said softly. "We were builders. Long ago, we created machines that could light worlds, heal the sick, and move ships across the stars faster than any empire. My father was one of the last to know the old ways. He left me his knowledge, hidden inside lessons, stories, and codes. To others, it is nothing. But to me, It is a key. Mark frowned. A key to what? Her voice lowered. To the vaults. My people built hidden places to guard their greatest work. Weapons that could defend whole planets. Shields that could turn away fleets. Engines that could carry ships through storms no empire could follow. The empire has searched for them for years, but they cannot open the paths. Only the children of builders know the signs. I am the last. Mark stopped walking. He looked at her carefully. You mean to say you know how to reach these vaults? Lyra nodded. Yes. But I cannot open them alone. I was waiting, though I did not know for whom. My father told me that one day a stranger's hand would break my chains. That hand would guide me to the vaults, and together we would decide their fate. Yesterday, in the market, I saw that hand. Mark's heart pounded. He had only given a coin, nothing more. Yet now Lyra spoke of him as if destiny had placed him in her path. He struggled to find words. Lyra, you need to understand. If what you say is true, this is far bigger than us. The Empire will not stop hunting you. They will come for both of us. I know, she said quietly. But I am not afraid. The vaults are not only for my people. They are for all who suffer under chains. Perhaps they were waiting for humanity. Mark's thoughts turned to Earth. Humanity had fought many battles in this part of space, yet they were always weaker than the Empire. Their fleets were smaller, their weapons fewer, their defenses thin. If humanity could gain what Lyra promised, everything would change. For the first time, humans could stand not as prey but as equals. They reached the edge of the city where small ships waited for passengers. The desert stretched wide beyond the landing pads. Mark bought 2 seats on a cargo vessel heading toward the outer sectors. The captain, a broad man with grease-stained hands, asked no questions. He cared only for the coins Mark offered. When they were aboard, Mark and Lyra sat in the dim cabin as the engines roared to life. The ship lifted into the sky, leaving behind the desert city and its chains. Mark studied Lyra again. She looked calm, though her thin hands rested tightly on her lap. You carry a heavy secret, Mark said at last. Why trust me with it? Lyra turned to him. Because you freed me with no thought of gain. The Empire takes, bargains, and destroys. You gave, expecting nothing. That is the heart my father spoke of. That is why I trust you. Her words settled deep in Mark's chest. He wanted to deny it, to say he was only a soldier, a man tired of war. But he could not. Deep inside, he knew her trust was a gift he could not throw away. The cargo ship broke through the clouds and into space. Stars stretched endless before them. Lyra leaned close, her silver eyes reflecting their light. Our road will be long, she whispered. There are dangers waiting. But if we reach the vaults, you will see what my people left behind. Then you will understand why I follow you. Mark nodded slowly. Then we go together. Whatever comes. The ship carried them into the darkness between worlds, 2 travelers bound by fate. Lyra's secret was no longer hidden. She carried the key to a power that could change the balance of the galaxy. And though neither knew what trials lay ahead, both felt the same fire burning inside, the hope that chains, no matter how heavy, could one day be broken. The cargo vessel drifted through the endless black of space. Its engines hummed softly, carrying passengers and goods from one world to another. Most on board were merchants or workers, tired faces hidden under worn clothes. No one paid much attention to a soldier with a thin alien girl at his side. That was exactly how Mark wanted it. He sat near the window, watching stars slide past like silver dust. Lyra sat across from him, her silver eyes calm, her posture straight despite the rough seats. She did not complain, nor did she show fear. She simply watched, as though every detail of the journey mattered. Mark leaned forward. "Tell me the truth, Lyra. Do you know where we are going, or are we flying blind?" She tilted her head, as if measuring her answer. "We are not blind. The path is hidden, yes, but not lost. My father taught me the first steps. We must travel to the ruins of my home. Beneath its sands lies the first sign. From there, the road to the vaults begins." Mark frowned. "The Empire destroyed your world, didn't they?" "Yes," Lyra said softly. "But they could not erase everything. The signs remain, waiting for one who can see." Her certainty stirred something inside Mark. He wanted to question more, but the hum of the ship suddenly changed. The lights flickered. Passengers muttered nervously. The captain's voice came through the intercom. "All passengers, remain seated. We are being scanned. Do not move." Mark's body tensed. He knew what that meant. The Empire's patrols often searched vessels at random, hunting for escaped slaves, rebels, or anyone carrying secrets. He glanced at Lyra. She sat very still, but her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Moments later, the ship shuddered as it was pulled into docking with a larger vessel. The hiss of airlocks echoed through the cabin. Armed soldiers entered, their armor black and marked with the Empire's red crest. Their leader barked an order. "Papers. Everyone show your travel permits." Passengers hurried to obey, holding out identification chips. Mark did the same, passing his forged permit across the aisle. The soldier scanned it and nodded. Then the soldier's gaze shifted to Lyra. She had no papers. Mark's pulse quickened. The soldier narrowed his eyes. "Where are her documents?" Mark spoke quickly. "She is under my protection." "A servant." "Her papers were lost during the last raid." The soldier looked suspicious. He turned to Lyra. "Name your master. Speak now." Lyra's silver eyes met his without fear. "My master is no one. I walk free." The cabin grew silent. Passengers stared at her in shock. Mark's hand slowly moved toward the knife hidden under his sleeve. He could not fight an entire patrol, but he would not let them take her. The soldier sneered. "An escaped slave, then. She will come with us." He reached for her arm. But before he could touch her, Lyra spoke again, her voice clear and strong. "If you take me, you take nothing. If you kill me, you kill a secret greater than your empire." Her words froze the soldier. Something in her tone made him hesitate. But hesitation would not last. Mark stood, placing himself between the soldier and Lyra. "She stays with me," he said firmly. The soldier's hand went to his weapon. Passengers gasped. Tension filled the air like fire ready to ignite. Then, from the ship's bridge, the captain's voice shouted, "Patrol, time's up. Cargo approved. Release us." The soldiers hesitated. Their leader glared at Mark, then spat on the ground. "Keep your servant, soldier. But remember, eyes of the Empire are everywhere." With that, the patrol withdrew. The airlock closed, and the cargo vessel's engines roared back to life. Mark sat down slowly, his heart still pounding. He looked at Lyra. "Why did you speak like that? You almost got us both killed. Lyra's voice was calm. Because fear only feeds them. They expected weakness. I gave them truth instead. And it worked. Mark shook his head, half angry, half amazed. You are braver than you look. Lyra smiled faintly. Not brave. Certain. The vaults will not let me die before the road is found. The rest of the journey passed in silence. Hours later, the ship landed on a dusty outpost world at the edge of Empire space. Mark and Lyra stepped into the crowded port, the smell of fuel and metal thick in the air. From here, they would need to find transport to Lyra's ruined home. As they walked through the port, Mark realized something. He was no longer guiding her. She was guiding him. Every step she took was filled with quiet purpose. She did not stumble. She did not doubt. She carried a secret that could change the galaxy, and she trusted him to share the weight. That night, under the stars of the outpost sky, Mark made a silent vow. He had freed her for a single coin, but now her freedom was more than a gift. It was a mission. Whatever dangers came, he would stand beside her. Because in her silver eyes, he saw not weakness, but the spark of something far greater hope. The outpost world was dry and harsh, its air thick with dust and smoke from endless mining. Mark and Lyra moved quickly through its crowded streets, avoiding the gaze of patrols. The Empire's crest was painted on walls and banners, a constant reminder of control. But beyond the reach of the city lay the true goal, the ruined planet where Lyra's people had once lived. They found a small pilot named Bren, a man who asked no questions as long as his pay was enough. With the last of Mark's credits, they bought passage on his worn freighter. The ship lifted into the stars, its engines groaning but steady. As they traveled, Lyra stood near the viewport, her silver eyes fixed on the endless dark. My home lies beyond these sectors, she said softly. It is nothing but ruins now, yet beneath its sands waits the first vault. Mark studied her. Do you know what we'll find when we open it? She turned to him. I know it will not be empty. The builders never left their vaults bare. Each one holds a gift, hidden until the right hand arrives. My father told me that. Mark nodded, though doubt still lingered inside him. He had followed her this far because of trust, not proof. But now, proof was all that mattered. Humanity's survival could not rest on hope alone. Days later, the freighter entered orbit above a dead world. Its surface was cracked and dry, covered in endless desert. Ruined towers jutted from the sand like broken teeth. Long ago, this had been a thriving home. Now it was silent, a graveyard under the cold stars. The ship landed near a half-buried city. Mark and Lyra stepped into the hot wind. The ground crunched beneath their boots as they walked toward the ruins. Broken walls rose around them, carved with strange patterns that time had not erased. Lyra touched one of the carvings with her fingers. These are the marks of the builders, she whispered. They tell the path. Mark looked closer. To him, the symbols meant nothing, but Lyra traced them with care, following their shapes as if they were letters in a book only she could read. Finally, she stopped before a collapsed archway. Here, she said. The first vault lies below. Mark cleared away debris until a hidden stairway appeared. Together, they descended into the earth. The air grew cooler, heavy with dust and silence. The stairs ended at a wide stone door carved with the same strange marks. In its center was a hollow space shaped like a hand. Lyra stepped forward. This is the test. Only blood of the builders may open it. She pressed her palm into the hollow. The carvings glowed faintly, spreading light across the door. With a deep rumble, the stone split and slid open, revealing a dark chamber within. Mark held his weapon ready as they entered. The chamber was vast, filled with towering machines half buried in sand. Lights flickered to life one by one, bathing the room in pale blue glow. Strange humming filled the air as ancient power awakened after centuries of silence. Mark stared in awe. By the stars, this is real. Lyra walked to the center of the chamber where a tall pedestal rose. On it rested a cube of crystal, its surface shifting with flowing light. She placed her hands on it, and the cube responded, sending lines of energy across the machines. This is the core, she explained. It holds knowledge of the builders. Weapons, shields, engines all can be called forth if the right people learn to use them. Suddenly, a sharp alarm echoed through the chamber. The walls trembled as a distant blast shook the ground. Mark cursed. Empire patrols. They followed us. The stairway behind them filled with noise. Armored soldiers poured into the vault, their weapons raised. Mark fired quickly, forcing them back, but more came. Lyra clutched the crystal cube to her chest. "Take it," she cried. "We cannot let them have it." Mark fought with fierce strength, moving from cover to cover. The vault echoed with blasts of energy. One soldier fell, then another, but the Empire's numbers grew. Mark shouted, "Lyra, there's too many." Lyra's silver eyes burned with light. She placed the cube back onto the pedestal and pressed her hands to it once more. Energy surged through the chamber. The ancient machines came alive, releasing a wave of blue shields that spread across the room. Empire weapons struck the shields but could not break them. The soldiers shouted in panic as the machines unleashed beams of pure light, striking them down one by one. The vault itself had become a fortress, awakened by Lyra's touch. Mark stared in amazement. "You did it? You woke the vault." Lyra stepped back, her body trembling with exhaustion. "Not I alone. The builders left it for us, for those who would fight against chains. Now it belongs to you too." The last of the Empire patrol fled in terror, their shouts fading into the desert above. The chamber grew quiet again, filled only with the low hum of awakened power. Mark placed a steady hand on Lyra's shoulder. "With this, humanity has a chance. We can fight back." Lyra met his gaze. "This is only the first vault. There are more across the stars. If we reach them, your people will rise stronger than the Empire ever imagined." Mark nodded, determination hardening in his heart. "Then we'll find them. Together." The machines glowed brighter, as if answering his vow. The vault had awakened, and with it, a new hope for freedom spread across the galaxy. The vault's machines hummed like a heartbeat deep beneath the ruined sands. Blue light shimmered across the walls as if the chamber itself had awakened from a long sleep. Mark stood in the center, still catching his breath after the battle. Around him, broken armor of fallen Empire soldiers lay scattered on the floor. Lyra stood by the pedestal, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the blue light. She held the crystal cube close to her chest, as if guarding the very soul of her people. Mark looked at her. "We cannot stay here. The Empire knows about this place now. They will send more." Lyra nodded. "Yes. But the vault has given us what we need. We must carry it to your people before the Empire destroys us both." Mark stepped closer to the pedestal. Strange symbols glowed faintly across its surface, symbols that seemed alive. "What exactly did you unlock?" he asked. Lyra touched the cube, and streams of light spread across the pedestal, forming images in the air. Mark saw shapes of ships larger than any human design. He saw shields that wrapped whole cities in protection. He saw weapons that bent the very stars. This, Lyra whispered, is the gift of the builders. It is more than power. It is knowledge. Your people can learn, if you trust it. Mark stared at the floating images, his heart heavy with awe. Humanity had always fought with borrowed time, with ships weaker than the empires and weapons barely strong enough to defend colonies. But with this, everything could change. The ground shook suddenly. Dust fell from the ceiling. Mark spun toward the stairway. Above, the muffled roar of engines echoed. More soldiers were landing. They are coming again, Mark said sharply. We need to move now. Lyra placed the cube back into its case, a small metal container built into the pedestal. She pulled it free and held it tightly. The vault's power cannot be carried in machines alone, she said. But this cube carries the knowledge. With it, humanity can awaken more. Together they climbed the stairway, emerging into the burning desert sun. The air shimmered with heat. Above them, Empire dropships descended, sand whipping into storms around their engines. Soldiers poured out, surrounding the ruins. Mark cursed under his breath. We'll never break through that many. Lyra's silver eyes focused on the dropships. We don't need to. The vault has already chosen. The ground beneath them rumbled. From cracks in the sand, massive machines began to rise, towering constructs of metal, shaped like guardians long asleep. Their eyes glowed with the same blue light as the cube. The Empire soldiers froze in shock. Then the machines roared to life, hurling beams of energy that shattered dropships like toys. Go! Lyra cried, pulling Mark forward. They ran across the desert while the ancient guardians fought behind them. Mark glanced back and saw the Empire forces breaking, their lines scattered by the awakened power. The machines moved with unstoppable strength, as if protecting Lyra herself. By the time they reached Bran's freighter, the outpost's sky was burning with battle. The pilot's eyes widened when he saw them. What did you two stir up? Take us off this world! Mark shouted. The freighter's engines roared to life. It lifted into the air, shaking from the sandstorm left by battle. As they broke free of the atmosphere, Mark finally allowed himself to breathe. The dead world below was alive again, its guardians holding back the Empire. Inside the freighter, Mark turned to Lyra. You weren't lying. This is real. With that cube, humanity could change everything. Lyra held the crystal close. Yes. But power is not enough. You must carry it with wisdom, or the chains will only change hands. Mark nodded. Then we'll carry it right. We'll use it to defend, not to conquer. The freighter jumped into faster than light travel, leaving the Empire world behind. For days they traveled through hidden routes, until at last the blue glow of Earth's home fleet appeared ahead. Human ships filled the space around a station, their armor scratched and patched, their weapons old but ready. When Mark stepped onto the station with Lyra, soldiers and officers stopped to stare. A human soldier bringing an alien girl with strange silver eyes was unusual enough. But when she placed the cube on the command table and the room lit with blue light, silence fell. Images of new ships and weapons filled the air, projections from the cube. Commanders leaned forward in shock. Admirals whispered among themselves. One of them turned to Mark. Where did you get this? Mark glanced at Lyra, then back at the admiral. From the ruins of a people the Empire thought forgotten. She led me to it. And she says there are more. Murmurs spread through the officers. For the first time, their tired eyes burned with hope. Humanity had been fighting a losing war for decades, but now, with the knowledge of the builders, the tide could turn. Lyra spoke softly, her voice carrying across the chamber. This is only the beginning. The Empire believes it cannot be challenged. But if you learn, if you rise, you can break their chains. Not just for yourselves, but for all. The room erupted with determination. Orders flew, plans formed. Engineers studied the cube, pilots spoke of new tactics, and soldiers lifted their heads high. A rising flame had been lit among them. That night, as Mark stood alone on the station's viewing deck, he looked at the stars. Ships drifted in silence, small compared to the Empire's massive fleets. Yet for the first time, he did not see weakness. He saw potential. Lyra joined him, her presence quiet but steady. They believe now, she said. Mark nodded. Yes. And belief is the first victory. Together they watched the stars, knowing the true battle had only begun. Humanity's flame had been kindled, and soon it would burn bright enough to challenge the Empire itself. The human station buzzed with new life. Engineers worked day and night, studying the crystal cube Lyra had given them. Shipyards glowed with fresh activity as old vessels were reinforced with shields the builders had once designed. Weapons once thought impossible were being forged in silence. Mark walked through the busy halls, feeling the change in the air. Months ago, humanity had been fighting only to survive. Now, they were preparing to fight for victory. The cube had become the heart of the fleet, and Lyra, once a slave sold for a single coin, was now seen as a guide. Yet danger grew with every passing day. The Empire had not been blind. Reports arrived of vast fleets gathering at the edge of human space. The Empire's leaders had learned that something had shifted, and they were determined to crush it before it spread. Mark stood in the war room beside Earth's admirals. Maps of the galaxy floated before them, glowing with red and blue lights. Red marked the Empire's forces, spreading like fire across the stars. Blue marked the human fleet, small but growing stronger with each passing day. The Empire will strike here, an admiral said, pointing at a colony world named Haven. If they take it, they can push straight to Earth. Mark's gaze hardened. Then we hold Haven at all costs. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Lyra. She stepped forward, her silver eyes reflecting the maps. You will not win by matching their strength, she said. The Empire has more ships, more soldiers. But they do not understand the vaults. I will guide you with what I know. Trust me, and you will turn their power against them. The admirals exchanged uncertain looks, but Mark spoke firmly. She has never been wrong. We follow her lead. And so the plan was set. The Empire would come with overwhelming force, but humanity would answer with something new, courage sharpened by knowledge the enemy did not understand. When the day of battle arrived, the sky above Haven burned with light. The Empire's fleet filled the horizon, towering warships armed with weapons that had crushed worlds. Against them rose the human fleet, smaller but shielded with new defenses from the cube. Mark stood on the bridge of a human flagship, the steel floor humming beneath his boots. Soldiers moved around him with sharp focus. At the center of it all stood Lyra, calm, her silver eyes fixed on the approaching storm. The Empire's commander sent a message across the stars. Surrender your fleet. Surrender the girl. Do this, and we will spare your worlds. Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear as she answered. I was chained once, and I was freed. I will never return to chains. And neither will they. The battle began. Empire warships unleashed their fire, beams of red tearing across space. Human ships braced, and for the first time, shields held. Energy waves struck but failed to break. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Now, Lyra commanded. Strike their engines. Use the pattern of the builders. Human ships moved in ways the Empire had never seen, weaving through enemy lines with sudden speed. Weapons guided by the cube's knowledge struck at weak points in the Empire's armor. One by one, massive ships of the Empire fell in bursts of light. Mark gave orders with steady voice, his heart burning with pride. Every soldier fought with the strength of knowing they had a chance. Humanity, once prey, now fought as equals. The Empire fleet pushed harder, throwing all their power into breaking the human lines. But Lyra guided them like a star in the dark. Her voice carried across the ships, calm and sure. Hold here. Turn there. Strike now. Every command turned defeat into strength. At the height of the battle, the Empire's flagship advanced, larger than all others, a monster of steel. Its weapons burned, tearing through human defenses. Mark clenched his fists. If that ship stands, we lose everything. Lyra placed her hand on the crystal cube connected to the flagship's systems. Her silver eyes glowed brighter than ever. Then we will not let it stand. The cube pulsed with power, sending streams of light into the human fleet. Engines flared, shields hardened, weapons struck with perfect aim. Together, the fleet unleashed a storm of fire on the Empire's flagship. For long minutes it resisted, but then, with a thunderous explosion, the great vessel shattered into fire. The Empire fleet broke. One by one, their ships turned and fled, retreating into the dark of space. Humanity had won. On the bridge, silence filled the air as soldiers realized what had happened. Then cheers rose, shaking the ship. For the first time in history, humanity had not only survived the Empire, they had defeated it. Mark looked at Lyra. She was pale, her body weak from using the cube, but her eyes still shone with strength. He stepped closer. You did it? Lyra shook her head softly. We did it. A coin freed me, but courage freed your people. Together, we broke the Empire's pride. Across the galaxy, news spread of the battle. Worlds long crushed by the Empire heard of humanity's victory. Slaves whispered of freedom. Rebels lifted their banners again. A spark had been lit, one that would not be easily extinguished. On Haven, survivors built monuments not only for the human soldiers but also for the alien girl with silver eyes who had stood beside them. She was no longer seen as a slave but as a leader, one whose wisdom had turned chains into weapons of hope. Mark stood with her at the monument. You gave us more than victory, he said. You gave us a future. Lyra smiled faintly. And you gave me freedom. That is the circle completed. Together they looked at the stars, where new battles would surely come. But now, humanity did not face them alone. They faced them with hope, with courage, and with the bond of two peoples who had chosen freedom together. The greatest victory had begun with a single coin, a simple act of kindness that changed the fate of the galaxy.